Hello, Virgo. It's Jenny here with your January tarot horoscope for the brand new year. So, we're just going to be pulling a single tarot card from my Salvador Dali deck to see what's coming up for you in January. Also, Happy New Year. Hope you had good December, and we're going to see what is going to come up for you in the new year. So, the first 2/3 or so of January is the rest of Capricorn season. There's one for you. And then towards the end, we're going to be moving into Aquarius. So those are the two main energies we'll be working with. And let's see what card we have for you today. Okay, we have 8 of coins reversed. This is what it looks like the right way up. So we have this man, this kind of traveler figure, and he's walking along. In the distance, we see this kind of like little homestead or village there. There's kind of these insects flying around. And the sky, there's a moon there. And came out upside down like that. So let's see what 8 of Cups has to say for you. Okay, 8 of Cups. On the journey to your personal destiny, dreams and visions that cannot be easily grasped are nevertheless an important part of your inner world. They help our consciousness to expand and our power of discernment to grow. Begin your search now. Like the cups, the moon in the upper left corner stands for spiritual needs. The card encourages you to start your journey and to keep moving, but it warns you not to become too restless because then you might hurry past your goal, represented by the village in the background, without noticing it. The flies depicted on the card thus have a central meaning. They symbolize the autonomic nervous system and therefore the tension alternating with relaxation that regulates our biorhythms. Replace nervousness and sluggishness with purposeful action. Go where your heart wants you to go. It is your task to become aware of your inner flow. This is the best remedy against addiction as well as loneliness. It is said that everything flows, but sometimes the inner life has dried up or overflowed and submerged all. Think of your life as a journey. Be like the journeymen of old, who used to travel in order to become masters of their craft. Where do you come from? Where are you headed? Don't force your feelings and inclinations to fit into a preconceived logic. You will find your own destiny in the balance of your own feelings and thoughts. You will discover it at the place where the experience of the flow is the strongest. This is not only a wonderful spiritual experience, it is also a very practical way of dealing with everyday life. The lazy ones are the clever ones. The person who succeeds in going with the flow exerts relatively little energy and yet achieves the most. Practical advice. Feel and trust your inner flow. Be aware of your own personal rhythm and make it an integral part of daily life. Feast and fast. There is a time for everything. Okay, so this one is kind of a really nice one to have at the beginning of a new year. So New Year's obviously often a time of like thinking, recapping of what happened in the past year, kind of trying to think about where you want to go, what you want to accomplish, what you want to be in the coming year. And so this one is talking about vision, but as it's like, it starts from inside. It's not vision like this external quest, this thing that's going to be dumped upon you, just that you're thrust into. It's showing that like this life force, this flow is coming from inside, and it starts with your heart, and that is where the energy that pushes you along your path. So if this is this wellspring where the flow starts, and then you can sit and find where that current is pulling you and pushing you, and then that is guiding you towards your destiny, but not in like a distant from you and pulling you along. So this is really like suggesting that you go inward in this case. And with this image of a journeyman traveling, it's this inward-outward journey. It's this first journeying inward to the heart to say, okay, like, what are my spiritual needs? What are my desires? Where's my past? Where did I come from? Great time to be thinking of the last year and the years before. Like, where did I come from to get to this place? And then when you can kind of tap into that flow, then you get to be the journeyman outward, out into the world with this vision. And this vision that this may be more like, this is going to be what's going to help you integrate into the world, or what is it that you want to do in the world in a bigger way. So, destiny kind of has this concept of what are you here for? What is the big purpose? And not everybody's destiny is going to look the same, but it's going to have that same quality of pull and push, and when you're in the flow towards it, that sense of this is where I'm supposed to be, even if it's not easy. It's usually not easy all the time. That's what makes it worthwhile, but there's a rightness to it that you're on the right path, even if the path is rugged. So in terms of the astrology of this time, the first 2/3 of the month, like I said, is Capricorn season, and Capricorn season is all about manifestation and goal setting, and the practical, tangible work to achieve those goals. But it is this. Sometimes it gets a bad rap if you're not attached to proper ideals or vision, or connected to true desire. This can just be a time of like busy work, of people being like, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to do something. It's a new year, so I guess I'll make a resolution. Or everybody else is trying to get their life together, so I guess I have to as well. And then it just feels like you need to be busy to feel like you're good, like that you're doing something. So just work not attached to some sort of ideal. That's kind of like the dark side of this season. But if you have that connection to source and connection to what it is that your ideals are and where you want to go, then that desire for that goal is what's going to push you to actually put in the work. It's all great to sit around and have a dream, but nothing's gonna happen if you don't get out there and work for it. And this season is a great time to set tangible, specific goals connected to that vision. So in the last few months, we've kind of had a bit of a story building. In Scorpio season, we kind of brought up a lot of things that may have been kind of in the past, or emotional, or repressed, or things that maybe haven't really been on the conscious mind to deal with, and that all came up into the forefront. And then in Sagittarius season, we got to kind of shine the light of your truth and your beliefs on all of those things that came up, to sort of say like, okay, what do I make of this? What do I believe to be true? What's my vision? And so we had a chance to experience a bit of vision and dreams in Sagittarius season. And now in Capricorn, it's how are we going to make that dream a reality? How are we going to do the steps and work hard in order to move us forward, or in this card, in this sense, to get us into that path of flow? How do we get into the flow so that we can kind of go where we're going? This card also has an important part to do with when you know your goal. You know when you've succeeded. A lot of times, especially if we make kind of open-ended desires of like, I want to be better at this, or I want more of this, or less of that. Less, more, better doesn't have a point that you can point to and say, oh, I've made it. And so it can either be really hard to achieve because it feels just really lackluster, or you can get really obsessed about it and you kind of miss a mark of where you would be content. So this card was saying that we want to make sure that if the village was the goal, that we didn't rush past it on some sort of like, the quest, I still have to keep going. So knowing where, like marking for yourself when you kind of figure out your vision, what is your win? Like, how do you know when you've made it? Or even if it's not made it and completed it, if it's like a long-term vision, or like a life destiny, where are the rest stops along the way? So you might not be complete, but how will you know when you've done enough work for the day? How will you know when you'll feel content with your workload, and feel like now you deserve a rest, and you can have a little celebration and kick loose a little bit. Like, these are important things to know. When the journey's long, you do have to rest. That's even as we kind of move through the card, is talking about the autonomic nervous system, which regulates contract, relax, regulates rest and digest versus fight or flight. It's the kind of back and forth homeostasis that we have in our bodies, that kind of guide us towards health, which is in a range. And so, if you inhale, that's one end of the spectrum, and then you get too full. You can't keep going further, so you have to exhale, but you can only exhale so far and you need oxygen again. And this is that back and forth autonomic nervous system tension and relaxation, and that's going to be applied to your work towards your visions as well. As working really hard, and then it's time to rest, okay, maybe it's time to get really inspired and go back to trying to remember what your vision is, and then okay, maybe we plan for what our next steps are. Like, there's different stages. You don't stay in one forever. And there can be the sense of, either personally or culturally, feeling like there's one specific point that that is the optimum place to be, like always hustling, or you should have completed your dreams and you have nothing left to do, or there's like a point that people sometimes feel like if you're not at optimum something, you're not doing well, you're not working hard enough, you're not doing something. And that's like trying to hold in your breath so hard because you think that being full of air is the optimum place and you never want to release it, and you're gonna pass out. So it, like, this understanding that optimum health and growth is this back and forth, this wave, instead of a single point, is going to be really, really helpful to not be in judgment of yourself, and also to enjoy each of the stages for what they are. And whether that's, swimming really hard to get into the current, or whether it's now you're in the current and it's really easy and it's taking you along, or whatever it might be, each of those stages has its place. So this is, and then we're talking a little bit here about you're finding your destiny in the balance of feelings and thoughts. So the marrying of the heart and the mind. So Virgo, you're in an interesting position, just elementally. So Virgo, you're an earth sign, and so that's very much about being in the body, the physical realm. But Virgo is often very analytical. Virgo is connected to the planet Mercury, which is the planet of thought and speaking and ideas and all of that. So even though you're an earth sign, there's that airy quality of being quite analytical and quite in your head, and so that can lead to sometimes either like a little bit of anxiety or over analysis and a difficulty putting things into action, just wanting to do all of the kind of troubleshooting ahead of time, or like I want to get the plan, I want to know it's perfect, and I want to know it's getting where it's going to go before I even start. And that can be really tricky because a lot of the time you don't really know until you're going, or you can't troubleshoot until you're actually in it and seeing what's coming up, and then you can kind of figure things out. So there, with Capricorn season of this like energy, it's an earth sign as well, of practical doing things. That's a good push to kind of try to get you to say like, okay, like get out of your head, get out of the busying planning stage, try to put some things into action, and get that kind of embodied instead of just kind of in the ideas land. And when you do, then it's going to be then you're going to have more feedback, real-time feedback. And a lot of the time, the antidote to anxiety is just action, because anxiety is so much about what could happen, and when you're in action, you're dealing with what is happening. So even if what is happening is like difficult or uncomfortable, it's real and it's in the moment and it's tangible, instead of all of the things that just might happen. So trying to remain in action, but action, of course, doesn't have to be a frenzied pace. It can be in this flow, and that's the ideal place, is if you are connected to the vision that you found in Sagittarius season and connected to that heart source, then action hopefully will be in that flow state. Although you might find that you're not going to feel like you've hit that flow until later in the month. So after we're finished with Capricorn season, we switch into Aquarius season. And Aquarius is all about the quantum leap forward, the big innovative spark, the like new aha idea, and as well a sort of feeling of concepts of liberation. So no longer being shackled to old ways or held down to other people's kind of paradigms. It's a new breakout and a new kind of concept. So what that can look like is, if you're working hard in this Capricorn season of trying to put things into action towards your vision, when we roll over into Aquarius season, it might suddenly feel like you're able to see that goal a little bit better, or you're able to see the accumulation of all of your efforts and suddenly hitting you to the next level of, wow, this actually made a difference. This actually is like opened up new pathways, and I have this kind of freer sense of not just having to do the work without anything coming from it. This is when one of those points where maybe it's the time for that celebration of, okay, things are working. I'm on the journey. I still have a long way to go, but you get that new injection of this is making a difference. This is mattering. So that it's kind of the same vibe for a lot of people, is really knuckle down and get the hard work in for the beginning part of the month, and then you'll get that feedback, that positive feedback that what you're doing is having an effect kind of later towards the month. And then the reminder, of course, don't just be working for the sake of working. Remain attached to the vision, remain connected to the heart source and that dream, and always be checking in with how do you feel about that. Is it starting to feel lackluster or stressful? Obviously, feeling some roadblocks or some stress when you're working is okay, but making sure it still feels like this is purposeful and this is still connected to your vision. I think that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. So I hope you have a wonderful January, wonderful New Year, and best of luck, Virgos.